I grew up in a country church. There was just one staff member. That's the pastor. That was it. There wasn't any others. Were just Sunday school workers or somebody who took a leadership, like in my home church. Ben and Louise Caudell were a couple, fairly young couple, and they took a leadership role with youth and those little over youth age, and became lifelong friends for me and beneficiaries of my work and with them. But then at Biltmore, there was never anybody but me and the song leader, who was he was just an untrained song leader. He'd been to singing school.
Right.
You know, they used to have singing schools. But when I came to seminary, I began to use some seminary students as part-time. They'd come out to help with the music. When I went to Lorenzo, Harlan Riddell was the music teacher at Monterey High School in Lubbock, and he led the music at the First Baptist Church, and we had a good working relationship. But that was it. I had to do the Sunday morning bulletin. We didn't have a secretary. That was it. We were running 225, 30 people. That was it. I went to Calvary. That was the first place I ever had a staff member. And I was blessed there. Paul Shaw was the minister of music when I went there. He left sometime later. Then we began to look for somebody who would be music and education. That used to be, when you had a second staff member, that's what you had. And God bless me, gave me a good man. His name was Jimmy Sheffield. Jimmy became very successful, became in Arkansas. He ended up being associate to the executive director there through the years and was well known all across the state of Arkansas. Great organizer and administrator. He was marginal, could get by with the music, but he was strong in doing that. Then we brought Ralph Edwards in, and Ralph was like Jimmy. He was strong. He could do the music, but he was strong in the Sunday school and the education work. But then when I went to Norfolk Worth, that was different. John Ballard was there. John was the minister of music, and he'd been there 10 years. So you've known John Ballard. John Ballard is one of the most alive, dynamic persons I've ever known in my life. I mean, he was the only staff member I ever had to that time that I thought worked as hard or maybe harder than I did, because he's always ready. He was always. So we worked together for 10 years, and he was minister of music, but he was also minister of mopping the floors if that's what needed to be done. He was a team member.
Yeah.
He'd do whatever needed to be done.
Right.
So when I went from there to Texarkana, I inherited a staff there, some good men, brought in a couple of guys to their staff that worked out well, had a good experience with. The others were good men, had good experience with them. But we brought in Paul Purefoy to be our minister of music. Didn't bring Paul in because of his musical skills. He had those. He was a graduate of OBU in Oklahoma. Godly, spiritual man. We had challenges in different areas, and particularly in the choir. We had challenges. So I wanted somebody who knew the Lord and could help. And Paul came, and he really proved to be that. He's working now in a church in Wausau, Oklahoma. I think his son-in-law's the pastor, and he's a senior adult pastor or something. But and I brought from North Fort Worth, I brought the man who was our minister, became our minister of youth when I was there. I brought him to be our minister of recreation. We had this satellite, and we wanted to develop some programs there. We had 30-some acres of land there. We had really an ideal location where their church is today. Well, Larry came and stayed until he had a stroke during COVID. He was the associate pastor. He was more like an executive pastor. He had all kinds of skills, unusual personality. He's still our friend. He's crippled and from the stroke, and is not able to do the things that he once did. But when I went to Lubbock the first time, I inherited a full staff there, and that proved to be pretty good. About that time, a key position was the one you later filled, the student minister who did the 930 program. Well, the guy that had been doing it, Doug Tips, left before I got there, so it was vacant. And that's when we had you ended up being there after Dave, and who else was before you?
No, it was Dave Bennett before, and Doug Tips before him, yes.
Yeah, Doug was before him. Well, there were some good guys. Ray went on to have a full ministry up in Vancouver,
Ray
Canada.
Woodard, yes.
Had a good ministry up there. He's now retired. Ron Lowry was the minister of music, and you remember Ron. Good, dedicated man. He was the first full-time minister of music that church ever had. Rex Webster was a bivocational minister of music at that church for all of Dr. Grant's years there, and he was there 20 years, and I think Rex was probably doing that when he came there after Dr. Herford. Good man, but bivocational, you know. So when they brought Ron in, he had to change the culture and did a good job. Paid the price, was a joy to work with, and he was still a friend. We still communicate with him. And then the other guys, most of them went somewhere else over time and did not stay. But and I brought John to Lubbock to be the minister of pastoral care, to take over what they did. An old gentleman there through the years, Brother. No, that's a bad deal. It'll come to me in a minute. He'd done what John came to do. Did funerals, did weddings, did hospital visitation, and all of that, until he couldn't do it anymore. But he left a real impact. He did things that made Dr. Grant look like a good pastor, because he took care of people. And Dr. Grant was a good pastor for 20 years. And all of those facilities that are there today, he relocated the church and built those facilities. So he was a strong and good man. But when I left, during that time, that's the time when you came on board there. In that time, you followed Dave. Dave was one of the most sincere, genuine guys I've ever worked with. You talk about fasting. I think Dave fasted half of the time. Things got a little tough. He'd go on a fast, But he won souls to the Lord and gave. But he had some, as you remember, some of it you inherited, some internal struggles with the university work group, that group that, and they were a strong group of people that invested themselves in reaching students on the campus at Texas Tech. And they made that ministry. That ministry came out of great pain and difficulty, because when David Ray went there as pastor, and he brought, help me.
Yeah,
he brought
Dan Urey.
Dan Urey on
right.
to start that ministry.
Right.
It created such conflict in the church that it almost split the church. I mean, it became, I tell you what, when one of the key laymen in that church died in recent years, before he died, he shared with me that it became so tense that he and a couple of other men, Junior Arterman for one of them, they were so concerned about Dan that somebody might do him harm that they would sleep in their car in his driveway to be his protection. Because they were folks, they thought they were so angry that they might do him harm.
Well, the anger was, help me understand a little bit, that they were angry that they were having college students in their own worship service, right? Or no? What was the issue?
Well, they separated the students out and
right.
started the second worship service.
Yeah.
Well, they ran the place over almost immediately. Yeah.
Right.
And here's all these older folks and others trying to get into church.
Right.
It just created internal confusion.
Right.
But they actually slept in their cars because they was afraid somebody might
try to hurt him.
Yeah, try to hurt him. Well, of course, the time you got there, we had
worked through that part.
We worked through that part, and
Dan was there. And then you had Barry Wood, and then
Barry was a very effective preacher.
He was a great preacher, yes. But
he had other issues with the pastor, Dr. Weber, at that time. I won't go beyond that. But you came, and when you came, I told you when you came that I would stand behind you and back you, because I knew there'd be some days when we'd have to do that. But you came, and this is the question you've asked, you came in answer to prayer, I don't remember where our first contact was or how it came, but I just know that when I met with you and I knew what you'd done in Knoxville, and I knew what you'd done in Texas and BSU work and other things, I just knew in my heart, you're the man. And I told you I'll back you. And I did.
Yes, you did.
And and God used that. When I came back to Lubbock in the second go round, God gave us, John Strapazon was there to do that job. And John was saved out of that ministry, baptized. He grew up a heathen up in Illinois, and came to Tech because of a teacher he had up there, and was saved there, and And really, when Dr. Wicker came from New Mexico, from Albuquerque, he brought John because he'd had contact with John and known John at First Baptist Church in Albuquerque and brought him to Lubbock. And John did a good job. He was a good man. He was there.
He followed Keith Brister, right?
Well, no, Keith followed him. Keith followed him. When John
was
left,
second, and then Keith. That's right.
Yeah, he followed Keith. We brought Keith to Lubbock.
To be the
recreation minister.
Right. Okay, I got it right.
He did the recreation minister. And it was a surprise. I had no idea. Keith's mother and dad were members of First Baptist Church Texarkana, so I'd known them there. Didn't know him, but he came out of a search process and was a good recreation minister. I had no idea. He never shared with me that he wanted to preach, but
then he
and I never heard him preach.
Yeah, he brought it. Yeah,
but he got in there.
First Duncanville. After that, and I mean he was
Huntsville. He went down to Huntsville, had a ministry there. But backing up and talking about, I can tell you some bad experiences in selecting staff, some mistakes that I allowed to happen. And I can tell you some success stories. Let me tell you one. It's a success story. When my last time in selecting staff at First Lubbock was music. That's a hard position to find somebody. And we looked at several fine young men. And when I say we, I had this kind of commitment with the personnel committee. First Baptist Church had never had a personnel committee until I went as pastor in 1980, because they had an executive committee that was the personnel committee for the church. They worked with the pastor, and they selected all of staff. Well, I felt we were stronger if we had done not everything in one little basket here, one group of 5 or 6 people that were controlling everything. So I moved them to more of a church council kind of approach and got a personnel committee to work with that. And but I had an agreement with the personnel committee that if they felt this was the person we want, I had to agree. I had to have a conviction that this was right, or we didn't go. I mean, if I said no, that was it. We looked for somebody else. If they said no, I would submit to them that we would work like that. Well, I remember we was looking for somebody after John had gone to Travis. And the committee had centered in on a guy up in Missouri, I believe it was. Sharp young guy. He came down, I met him. He wanted to come. I thought, well, maybe he's the right one. But 2 members of the committee said, no, we don't believe he's the one. One of them that said no was LaWanna Moore. Both of you guys remember Ms. Moore, one of the sweetest.
Right.
I taught her evangelism explosion, and she won more people to the Lord than I could ever imagine winning. She won more teenagers to the Lord. She was a godly woman, and her husband was a godly man and a friend of mine. And so I said, okay, committee, he's not the one. He's not the one. We've not found the right one, because when we find the right one, we'll have unanimity on this. Larry Rice knew Mickey Henderson. Mickey was in suburbs of Atlanta in a large church, running. They weren't as large as they had been before because they'd gone through some splintering. And he recommended Mickey to us. I don't remember whether Larry was on the search committee or not. I don't think he was, but he was very interested in who the musician's going to be. And so I met Mickey in the Atlanta airport one day. I was flying somewhere and met him there, and we met in a coffee shop there and had a long conversation. It went well. But we finally came down, and the committee didn't know what to do. So I said, let's invite Mickey out, and you guys get to know Mickey. And he came out. And God gave confirmation that time when he came. Hey, this is the guy. Now Mickey is Mickey's man. You know, Mickey was a center on the Mississippi College football team. So nobody pushes Mickey around. I mean, if you push on Mickey, he probably listens to this sometime. But he pushed back. You know, he that's just who Mickey was. But he was absolutely superb in building a worship service. I never will forget his first Sunday in Bugle Call. He led the service, and it was great. During the offering, instead of having special music, Mickey stood up and started singing a cappella, no instrument. Great is thy faithfulness, and sang that old hymn. I thought I was going to be raptured. I mean, it was just such a witness of God. And he was the best for a music man. He was the best. He was on everybody's team, and was a part of all of that. But in every one of these, you've got to find God's man. And you don't look at resumes. But one thing, if a guy's not doing it where he is, moving him to your place won't help him. It won't help him. And the biggest mistakes, I won't name names, but sometimes, a couple of times, I allowed us to call somebody that I wasn't negative about them. I just didn't have the conviction they're the right person. And they turned out not to be the right person for different reasons. We only had one experience ever where we dismissed somebody, and it was over moral charges and a situation. But God has put a staff together. Now, my assumption always as a pastor, Sam Douglas is called by the same Lord I am. And he's been given a ministry by God. And I need to be his enabler and encourager to help him do that. You know, I didn't have a preconceived idea in your area of the work that you got to fit into this structure here, but I wanted you to have the freedom. And I did that with each staff member.
You did, yes.
We had some good ones. Jerry Marsh is one of the greatest ministers of youth I ever knew. We just had some good ones, and I've been so grateful for that. But God gave them, God put them together as a team. I'm not a type D in terms of personality, but most of them were. Had you and those other guys, your D is your, I don't know what I am. I don't think how I come out of all those tests, but I was the pastor. And I insisted always in relationship with staff, the church can only have one pastor.
That's right.
You only have one pastor. And ultimately the pastor is responsible for declaring the vision.
That's right.
Now he involves everybody in prayerfully finding what the vision is for the church. But once you know it, the pastor's got to be the driver. He's got to be the leader.
Yeah.
And there were more than one time, particularly in my first time there, and somewhat in the second time, when there were guys that thought, well, we ought to do this, we ought to do that. And I had to come back and say to them, guys, I'm the pastor. And you remember, one of the things I was committed to was we were going to do outreach and use Sunday school as a primary method. That's the story of First Baptist Church.
Right.
And we weren't going to try and change that story.
Right.
I've not seen any successful attempts to take an old historic church like that and change their story.
Right.
Go with some other, tear down what's there and build something else.
Right.
You best if you take what God's given you and improve it and strengthen it and charge forward.
And I will just speak as someone who's been on your team, been a staff member. What you just described, every staff member felt. And when you mentioned D.L. Lowry, out in the broader world, your reputation, they think expository preacher, power in the pulpit, all of the things that you see. But those of us who've had the privilege of being on your team and on your staff in the day-to-day, we have seen more of who you really are, and you are a visionary, compassionate leader, and you were the keeper of the vision. There was never a doubt whose vision and who was responsible for the church, and we sensed it. And I have served with a lot of different pastors. I was youth ministers and all that, and I served with pastors. But I knew you heard from God, your vision was from God. I knew that I could come to you with anything, and you would keep it to yourself. You keep confidences at a level that is stellar, and I knew you had my back. But the thing I knew was you were praying for me. When you sat on the front row and I was preaching 9:30 and you had your Bible open and you were every now and then you'd nod or whatever, you cannot imagine what that did for someone on your team. We were thrilled and we were honored to be on your team. And you were the quarterback calling the shots. But what a privilege. And it was an honor and a privilege, and I've thanked the Lord many times. Russell, who's behind the camera right now, he and I have had conversations, and there's not a finer media man than Russell was, but it was a privilege to serve alongside you and with you, and there's no way to really communicate the depth of that. You invested in us. You invested in us at a level you won't know this side of heaven.
Well,
but,
I appreciate that.
You were a gift. You were a gift.
That's who I am, the way the Lord made me. You mentioned Russell. Russell helped us establish a media ministry at First Baptist, and we ended up owning a low-powered TV station, and we had more things going than dogs got fleas, and learning every step of the way. And he came out of the business world to do this, and I don't know of anybody that I have more confidence in than Russell Hartsfield. I'm not saying that because he's here. And who has been who's been a better producer of other good and godly workers out there in the media world, in local churches, and in different places. It's amazing. I still get emails from some of the guys that worked in media with him at First Baptist. And you helped recently, were there with us when we buried John Lee. John was such a disciplined and capable music minister. And when he died, when he died, Jan called me and we talked together. And she really surprised me. I had no idea that he would say this, but he told her just weeks before, and they just talked about his funeral. He said, well, I really would like for DL to do my funeral. She said, okay, but why? He said, he gave me more of a sense of freedom to do what I felt God wanted me to do than any pastor I ever had.
That's right, for all of us, yes.
Well,
That's right.
I felt complimented by that.
Yes, yes.
And there were times when John and I didn't see things the same way, but John always respected the decision I made. If I said, John, we're not going to do that anymore, we didn't do that anymore. That's it. That's the end of it. That happened 2 or 3 times. But that's going to be true. You work with anybody.
Yes.
There are going to be things that you've got a staff member who wants to do something and you just don't feel right in your spirit about it. But all you want from them is the acknowledgement
Yes, yes.
of your ability to be the pastor.
The thing that I believe more than if someone put me on the spot and said, well, what if you named one thing, what was it? We always trusted your walk with the Lord, your relationship with Him, and that's why it was a joy to serve you, because we serve the same God, and you in turn trusted us because you respected the fact that we were indwelt by the Holy Spirit and He could guide us. Amen. And you gave us freedom. You had the reins, but you let us, we were the horses and you let us run.
Well,
and it was a joy. And Russell and I last night commented, Russell said, the highlight of my ministry was those years in Lubbock with D.O. Larry.
Well, a lot of good things happened in those years.
Yes.
And you guys were there through some dark days too.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But God has had His hand on the church, and I think I talked to, who did I talk to? Somebody I talked to yesterday about the church, and the guy who's there now, I think they're coming alive again. And
good.
Joanne mentioned her mother is so excited about him, and well, it's good. I've really been in prayer for him because I want them to really
thrive. Yes,
we're still members there. They made me the pastor emeritus, and so I've not moved membership. We still give them a tithe there, but we attend with John, and we give partial tithe there with John, but I'll always be connected to First Baptist Church Lubbock,
right.
As long as they're there.